Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining. Go ahead and drop in the chat where you're joining from today, and we'll give everyone just a couple of minutes to join before we get started. Okay, Portland, Oregon. I've been watching a lot of Portlandia recently. I don't know if people who live in Portland love or hate that show. I'm sure it's polarizing, but it's very funny. DC area, love that. Love DC. Okay, Amanda, I'm glad that you're on the right side of history. Okay, got people still joining. Um, yes, that's a good one. Saskatchewan, I think I'm saying that right. Southern California, welcome. I went to San Diego for the first time last year for the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference, and it was hosted in San Diego. And it was beautiful. Afghanistan, welcome. Thanks for joining. Okay, I still see people trickling in, so I think we've got a big group today. So I want to give everyone just a couple more minutes. For anyone who has just joined, go ahead and drop where you're joining from today in the chat. We're going to be talking about how to reach younger audiences, whatever that means for your organization. So this will hopefully be helpful for you, whether you are an association or member-based organization, a nonprofit, so a 501(c)(3 charity, and arts and culture organizations as well. So it's kind of a similar playbook across all of these sectors, but with obvious differences in terms of your goals and challenges. So we'll talk a little bit about each individual vertical in the second half of the presentation, but the first half we'll be talking about just sort of the need to get in front of young people, the challenges universally when it comes to getting in front of younger people and younger audiences, and some ways that you can cut through the noise and get through to the right people. So, okay, welcome, Florida, fellow Florida person. I'm in Gainesville. Okay, so I will go ahead and get started. People are still joining, but I will go ahead and move on to this just to kind of get a sense of what people are currently doing. So, what are you doing to reach younger audiences? This could be anything from digital ads, paid social, maybe you're doing some organic social, maybe you're trying out TikTok or one of the kind of newer younger channels. So go ahead and just drop in the chat something that you're doing to try to get in front of younger people. Or if you're not doing something yet, but you have an idea of what you should be doing or kind of a goal around younger audiences, go ahead and drop that. Okay, organic social is obviously a popular one. I'm seeing some TikTok, paid media on TikTok. That's a good route. Okay, Instagram Reels. Katie, that's interesting. I'm love to hear more about the influencer program that you're working on. I feel like that's an underutilized channel for organizations in general, because I think it can feel a little bit out of reach. But as we'll talk about in a few minutes, younger people are very trusting of peer recommendations and word of mouth marketing, much more so over traditional advertising and marketing. So the more you can tap into influencer communities and influencers, whether they're people in your area or influencers online, micro influencers that have similar audiences to who you're trying to reach, that is absolutely something worth spending time on. Let's see, meeting them where they're at, in-person stuff, awesome. I'll talk in a few minutes about a digital campaign type that you can do to meet people where they're at in the real world, but with digital ads. It's called geofencing. So we'll talk about that. Same goes for college campus events, June. So you can actually target specific physical locations and serve ads to people who are spending time in that area or have recently been there. And so they'll see your ads as they browse across the web because they were in that location. So lots you can do if you're already going to places and kind of already know where your people are spending time out in the real world. You can also run these digital campaigns in tandem with that. So they see your ads in addition to seeing you there on site. Okay, cool. Lots of really great stuff here. I'm going to go ahead and dive in because we've got a lot to cover today, but thank you for, yeah, throwing in some ideas to the chat. So, quick agenda. Today, we're going to be talking about why younger audiences are hard to reach in general. And we'll go through some of the reasons why they're harder to reach and some of the ways that you can kind of get on their radar and capture them. The universal playbook, so some different campaign types that can kind of help you bring these people into the fold and sort of stay on their radar, messaging that resonates. So sometimes it's about sort of revisiting your core messaging, seeing if this is actually going to resonate with younger people or if it's kind of holdover from a different time, or maybe it applies to a certain audience, but you want to make sure that you're mixing up your messaging and speaking directly to different audience segments in the way that's most likely to resonate with them and convert them. And then, like I said, we'll be doing sort of a sector breakout. So I want to give a little bit of time to each of these three different spaces and talk about some of the different tactics and goals that apply to each one. So, real quick, I'm going to launch a poll just to see if anyone would like to be subscribed to our weekly newsletter. Let me get that launched. So go ahead and drop a yes. If you drop a yes, I will just subscribe you so you don't have to click on anything and you'll start receiving those on Wednesday mornings. We have one for associations specifically. So if you're an association, you will be subscribed to that version and you will get industry news, trends, helpful resources in the association space. Same goes for nonprofits and arts and culture orgs. We have a version for you. So you will be getting relevant information for the work that you're doing every day. And I see a lot of people are already subscribed, so that's great. I'll leave that running for just a few minutes, so feel free to keep dropping in answers if you haven't yet. I'll be sending out the deck and the recording, so be on the lookout for that in your email inbox tomorrow. You'll get that so you can review it. The email will come from me, so feel free to respond if you have any questions or feedback on the webinar. And I'll launch a quick feedback poll at the end just to kind of get a little bit more insight and input from all of you on whether this was helpful, what in particular was helpful, and where we could, go a little bit more in depth to cover topics that might be helpful for you as well. So I love to hear from people who are actually doing this work in the real world in terms of what's helpful, what's not, and what we could cover moving forward. All right. So younger audiences are harder to reach. Obviously, all of you registered for this webinar because that's probably a challenge that you are aware of and facing at your organization. There's a lot of different reasons for this, and I think most of these reasons apply to all of the types of organizations that we're talking about today. So there's less income, less disposable income, a lot more kind of like fear and anxiety around economic situations, the future, the job market. There's a lot of sort of unknowns today that didn't exist maybe 20 years ago when you were recruiting people to your association, getting donors to subscribe, to give monthly, things like that, that once felt easy, don't feel so easy anymore. And a lot of the time we're sort of using the same tactics that we've always used, and they're just not landing with a totally different population, which makes sense. But it can be hard sometimes to kind of recognize that you have to change your tactics and switch up what you're doing to actually get in front of this new audience of people that you're trying to reach. So less institutional trust, skepticism is the default when it comes to organizations, institutions, advertising and marketing in general, right? So you want to make sure that you're finding ways to build trust through storytelling, through real statistics, through impact reports, things like that. We'll talk a little bit about some tangible ways that you can do that in a few minutes. Word of mouth is the way to go. So, like I said a few minutes ago, peer recommendations and referrals are going to beat your best ad or your best email, right? So, wherever you can leverage influencer marketing, social media, really building up a presence on both organic social and running paid ads on social, because that's really going to help drive conversions and boost your visibility on social media. But having that online, real, kind of real human presence is also very important for building that trust. So, different channels. Obviously, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of channels, social media, there's a lot of different devices. And so, it's hard sometimes to know how to reach people in all of the places that they're spending time. And that's where digital advertising can come in. It helps you kind of show up where people are already spending time online and show up with ads that are going to kind of remind them consistently about your cause, your association, an event coming up, things like that. And then you have about a 3 to 8 second window before people are going to scroll past. I think that's also a little bit generous depending on what we're talking about. It's easy to scroll past an ad in less than a second. But also, if you're talking about maybe like a social media paid post that's a video, somebody might scroll, stop, maybe turn on the volume or not, read the subtitles, whatever. But obviously, we all know how we engage with content online. And so think about this when you're developing your creative and figuring out where you want to show up online, because there's definitely a shorter attention span on average. And even, when people land on your website, for example, they can determine in less than 1 second if you are sort of a mobile friendly, seamless, modern user experience, or if it's going to be a clunky experience. And you can easily see people fall off if they click on an ad, get to your website, and that is not a sort of seamless, mobile friendly experience. So you want to make sure that everything that you have up and running is mobile friendly and easy for people to convert without any friction. And then 7 to 12 touch points until someone converts. So this is kind of the average that we see. I've seen sources that say it's many more than this at this point, because we're just seeing so many ads every day that it takes a lot to actually get someone to notice you, click through. And then when someone clicks through for the first time, they're not likely to actually convert that time. They might learn more. So it's really about continuing to show up, staying in front of them as much as you can, and just showing your value in order to get them to come through and convert. And yeah, I see. Thanks, Naomi, for answering that. But yeah, we will be sharing the slides and the recording. And so you'll get that in your email inbox tomorrow morning. So yes, we'll be sharing that afterwards. All right. So, although all of these challenges exist when it comes to reaching younger people, whether it's Gen Z, millennials, sort of across the spectrum of younger audiences, they share a lot in common. So, if you're kind of thinking like, oh, it's kind of hard to tailor my messaging and my advertising to Gen Z and millennials, how do I sort of differentiate? If you have the sort of time and bandwidth to do that, that's fine. Obviously, there are some differences in terms of what platforms they're spending their time on, longer form video content versus shorter form. There are things like that that we could, delve into. But what I want to focus on today is what younger people in general have in common when it comes to how you can effectively reach them. So authenticity over polish is always going to win. So real stories are going to beat heavily produced ads every time. So coming back to, using photography, using real testimonials, telling the stories of the people that you've helped, telling the stories of people who have attended your annual conference and maybe made a connection that got them a new job, right? So these are real impact stories that are really worth highlighting and kind of leading with, because those are going to be the things that build trust, get people interested, actually feel valuable and worthwhile, right? Impact has to be visible. So here's exactly what your action does for you, for someone else, for the community. So again, depending on what that action is, that's going to be different. So buying a ticket for an annual conference is going to have certain benefits for the buyer. Donating to a local cause is going to have certain benefits for the community or a person in the community, right? And that feel good sort of result for the donor. So you want to sort of tap into whatever is going to make people understand how they're benefiting or how someone is benefiting from this conversion. Like I said, mobile friendly, you always want to make sure that you're testing things, make sure that your flow from clicking on an ad on social to getting to your donate page or your event registration page and actually converting, make sure that that's seamless, test it out yourself, have a couple people test it, just make sure it's working. And peer validation closes it. So I can't say this enough, but reviews, testimonials, social proof, having people, share something that you've posted on social with their friends, that's going to go a much longer way than you showing up right in front of new people. So as much as you can, try to build that kind of community on social media and in the real world, right? Whether that's influencers, whether that's school ambassador programs. I saw somebody mention that in the comments. Any ways that you can kind of engage with your community locally, form relationships, and build on that, that is going to go a long way for convincing younger people to engage with you and to trust your organization. All right. So the universal playbook that kind of works across all sectors has three stages. So a lot of you are probably familiar with sort of the marketing funnel, right? You have awareness, engagement, conversion. So this is a little bit of a twist on that. So this engagement part heavily relies on that trust building, right? So awareness, you're getting in front of them for the first time, whether that's before they've even searched for you or right after. So we're going to talk about something that you can actually do with search terms that's not Google Ads. It's sort of similar to Google Ads, but serving ads to people based on them searching for terms that you deem relevant. So this is the awareness portion. Trust, so that's that kind of middle of the funnel engagement phase, right? Where you're really kind of showing up consistently, staying in front of them, telling stories, trying to build that relationship and ultimately get them to convert and only making that ask when they're ready, not being pushy, not asking right when they've first discovered you, because that's off-putting. So I'm going to go through a few different ways that you can build this awareness and this trust. And so there's lots of different ways you can do this. I want to hone in on just a couple of examples today of campaigns that you can easily run that I think are kind of interesting and creative for all of the different organization types that we're talking about today. So geofencing is, like I mentioned earlier, if you're showing up to schools, college fairs, campuses, like real world places, you can also serve ads based on people having been in those places. This is called geofencing. So you're kind of drawing this digital perimeter around a real spot on a map and you're serving ads to people because they were there. So you can do this with college campuses if you are an association and you're trying to reach people who are about to graduate or people in a specific major, right? You want to recruit them to your association or kind of tell them about the benefits of coming to your conference next year after they graduate and they're, working in engineering or a medical field, right? You want to really kind of get in front of them already and start promoting what you have to offer to them. Different venues, so this could be event venues, if you are a charity and you're trying to get donations and you are, looking for people who are likely to have disposable income and sort of be out and about in the community, you might geofence an event venue, other events that are happening, high income neighborhoods, airports are another one. We're going to see some examples of that. And so basically, you're just serving mobile ads to the people who are in these spaces and they will see your ads wherever they go next. So it's not just while they're there, right? It's because they were there that they will then see your ads following them across social media, all of the websites they're browsing, mobile apps, things like that. And then you don't have to have their email address or any kind of prior relationship. They do not have to have visited your website at any point or recently or anything like that. This is sort of a net new kind of getting in front of people. They might know about you, but they might not. And that's the point. You can get in front of anybody that you want because they were in that specific location. And 96% of Americans carry a smartphone everywhere. And so you will be able to reach them with geofencing in almost every case. So just a few examples of what this can look like in real life. So this is ABC Wisconsin chapter. They geofenced college campuses with ads like this to reach students about apprenticeships while they were making career decisions, right? So college isn't the only option. Some people are, about to graduate from high school and maybe they're touring college campuses. Maybe they've started college, but it's just kind of not going well for them and they're looking for something else that they can do with their time and with their skills, right? So this could be a really great place to find people who are maybe a good fit for the construction industry, right? And so apprenticeships are a great thing that you can promote to that group of people. So kind of thinking about where are the people I'm trying to reach, where are they spending time in real life? And what would those people be interested in, right? So the things that you're actually promoting to them are also going to differ depending on who they are. And the places that you can find people will differ depending on who they are and what you're trying to promote. So there's a lot you can do with geofencing. Palmetto Community Care, which is a wonderful nonprofit in Charleston, South Carolina. They run an annual Beer Fest fundraiser to raise money for their cause, and they do a lot of really cool stuff with geofencing. So this user geofences local breweries, right, in the area, because he figures, if they're going to breweries, bars, restaurants, other kind of social activity areas in town, they might be interested in a beer festival fundraiser. And then a really cool thing that he does is he actually geofences a radius around airports, mostly on the East Coast, right? So it's going to be kind of like easy to get to the South, East, and the East Coast. But these are airports that have direct flights to Charleston. So he figures, if people are looking for something to do for the weekend, maybe they want to do like a friend group trip or something. People probably aren't going to come to a beer fest if it requires a connecting flight and a whole lot of hassle. But if somebody could just hop on a plane, get to Charleston in a couple hours, spend the weekend there, come to this cool beer fest, and go home on a Sunday night, that might be worth, targeting those people. And so he actually runs geofencing campaigns around, I think it's, yeah, as you can see here, a 30-kilometer radius around these flight destinations with ads that look like this to try to get them to come. And this is one of the ads that he runs to for the flight destinations. And so obviously the messaging is a little bit different. The best beer fest in America's number one vacation spot. So kind of really, you know, um, plugging the idea that it's worth traveling for. And then this is another ad that they ran. They kind of changed the theme each year. So this is from a different year, but this is one of the ads that they ran at the local breweries, restaurants, places like that. There's also an area of town in Charleston that is kind of like a really walkable area called Riverfront that I think has bars and restaurants and parks and stuff like that. So they also target that area. I believe Riverfront has a music festival every year. So I think they target the music, the venue around the time of the music festival to kind of get in front of people who clearly are interested in going to music festivals. And then, so Lulu, you can set up geofencing. So Feathr offers this capability. Basically, all you do is you go in, you develop your ads and your creatives, right? You load those into the campaign, and then you can select. It's kind of as simple as it looks in this view of the app. This is actually a screenshot from Feathr, but you can select the specific areas on the map. You can do this by zip code, actually. We recently added that in Feathr, so you can actually get as specific as a zip code. So if you're trying to raise money for your cause and you want to target high income areas of town, you can actually target high income zip codes in your area, which is really cool. And so you can do, 30-kilometer radius around an airport, for example. You can get more targeted than that. You can reduce that. And then, okay, Lynette, very cool to hear that you use geofencing around conferences. Another thing you can do is geofence competitor events. So if you're an association and there's another association kind of in your space where a lot of the people that you're trying to get to come to your conference are going to be, you can geofence that venue, right? And be like, hey, you were interested in this. You might want to come to our conference as well. You can geofence your own events. And so you're basically just serving ads to people who were at your event. So you know that they're highly engaged, right? And okay, great. Yeah, Lynette, you're doing exactly what you should be doing with geofencing. And then, yes, okay. So Sally, yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I don't believe you can do a specific address, but you can get us targeted as a zip code. You can do an event venue and kind of a small radius around that. So you really can get pretty targeted in terms of the venue or the people who are going to be spending time in a smaller location. And then Golisano Children's Museum of Naples. This is a children's museum in Florida that geofences schools and parks and family spots around town. So you can kind of see they drew a 30-kilometer radius around this area of downtown Naples. So this is near where the museum is. And this is a great way to reach millennial parents who might have kids that would want to go to a museum. Also Gen Z at this point, right? A lot of Gen Zers are starting to have kids. And so this is a great way to kind of just show up on the mobile devices of people who are out and about, spending time in your area, and encouraging them to come and bring their kids to this museum. Search targeting is another way to build awareness and get in front of new people. Let's see, Bill. Um, Yes, so you can actually run a geofencing campaign. So we kind of differentiate between historical geofencing and mobile geofencing. They're both mobile campaigns, but we just call it mobile. It's basically just sort of real-time geofencing. And so you do have to set it up a few days in advance in order for it to be effective. So if you know an event is coming up or something like that, or you know that you want to be bringing in donations or registrants or something like that at a certain deadline, you want to make sure you set up this campaign in advance. But you can absolutely do ads that are being served like in the moment while people are there. The way to think about that one is what are people doing while they're in that physical location? So that kind of depends, if it's a multi-day conference, you could do a geofencing campaign that's serving them ads while they're there because they're at some point going to be, scrolling on their phone in the bathroom. They're going to be at their hotel room kind of taking a break and maybe on their phone between sessions they'll be looking. So that is definitely a place where you might be showing up for people. An even better example of sort of real time or mobile geofencing would be a zip code or a high income area of town where people are going to be home and relaxing and on their couch, right? Scrolling on Instagram or, browsing the web. And so if you feel like people are going to be available on their mobile devices at the time that you're running the campaign, then yeah, you can be serving ads sort of in real time once the campaign launches. For historical geofencing, this might be, if people, for example, if you're geofencing an airport radius, people probably aren't like looking at their phone and scrolling a ton while they're moving around in an airport. Obviously, we sit and we wait, right? But there's a chance that you wouldn't show up in that window where somebody's sitting at the airport. So you want to kind of think of that as somebody lives around this airport destination. They have been at this airport recently, which means that they travel by plane sometimes, right? And so this would be a great example of a historical geofencing campaign. So if they were at this airport recently or around it, then show them ads ongoing and try to get them to come through. Okay. So with search retargeting, so a lot of you probably are aware of Google Ads, right? So this is the sponsored search result that shows up at the top of the page when somebody searches for something relevant. And so this lets you serve ads to people after they've searched for those relevant terms. And so if somebody searches volunteer near me or volunteer opportunities near me, professional certification, summer camps, things like this, you can follow them with those display ads across the web because they searched for that. Younger audiences typically do distrust sponsored results. I even find myself maybe scrolling past the sponsored Google Ads results and trying to find something organic that obviously is at the top of the page because of SEO and because of like building trust and building a reputation online. So but search behavior can still be that powerful signal that helps you understand who's looking for you and you can serve ads to them. And this is best built in parallel with SEO efforts. And so just a few examples of search targeting campaigns. Or search retargeting campaigns. So this is the American Association of Endodontists. They targeted 87 relevant search terms with ads about their annual meeting. And this was last year's meeting, and they drove 646 conference registrations through these ads. YMCA of Metropolitan Fort Worth. So they were running some after school care programs and they targeted search terms like after school programs near me, childcare near me, things like that. And they actually discovered that when they were targeting childcare, that was pulling in people who had searched for childcare for much younger kids. And so a lot of the people that were coming in through this search targeting campaign were actually looking for childcare for like 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and what the YMCA was promoting was more after school care for like 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And so they kind of understood, okay, when we say childcare, that pulls in people that we're not trying to reach. Let's stop saying childcare. Let's call it after school. And that was a really helpful insight for them. So they no longer say childcare when they're talking about programs for elementary school kids. So just an example of how running ads can actually be a great way to sort of A/B test messaging. And you might learn that something you assumed was working was absolutely not working for you. And you would only know that because you're seeing the data on who's clicking through and who's converting when you show that messaging. And then a quick arts example. So this is the Quad City Symphony Orchestra. They ran these campaigns targeting, so they ran a search keyword campaign targeting actually 852 unique keywords that I thought would be relevant for this Hocus Pocus in concert show that they were running. So they actually were able to bring in almost $12,000 in ticket sales with ads like these. And then retargeting. So this is kind of cart abandonment. You probably have heard that term before. A lot of you might be doing retargeting. If you're not, you should be. This is one of the sort of basic things that you should get up and running if you aren't already doing it. You install a pixel on whatever page that you're trying to track. So that might be an event registration page, a donor page, or a donations page, things like that. And you are basically tracking who's coming to that page and then leaving without converting. And then you can continue to show them ads because they visited that page, try to get them to come back and ultimately convert. So we talked about all of the ways you can get in front of people, build trust, keep them engaged, and then retargeting is going to be the way to kind of really stay in front of people and get them to come back. And you want to make sure that you are rotating your creative every 2 to 3 weeks because banner blindness is a real thing. Fresh message, but same warm audience. And your warmest audience is really the one that you want to be investing the most kind of thought and energy into because they are obviously giving you the most intent signals in terms of being interested in what you have to offer. So that's the audience you want to make sure you're staying focused on. So Katie, Feathr offers easy retargeting, along with these other campaign types that I'm talking about for building awareness. But retargeting is something that you can do very easily by just installing a pixel on whatever pages on your website you want to track and then serve retargeting ads. So Feathr's a great one. There's other marketing platforms out there that do that as well. You can, yeah. So I would say definitely if you're not already doing retargeting, look into that. I'm happy to also connect you with somebody who can walk you through how you can do this in Feathr. I'll launch a poll at the end to see who's interested in a more detailed walkthrough, but there's definitely a lot you can do. Okay, and then in terms of retargeting, just a few examples here. So Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra, they retargeted people who visited their show pages but left without registering for one of the events. And so they ran ads like these. These are very nice looking ads. And they sold 42 season subscriptions at $27,000. So that was a super successful season for them. The National Trial Lawyers, so this is an association, they reminded event page visitors who came to their event page but didn't register to come back and buy the ticket for the event. So they ran ads like this. Obviously, these are a little bit more bottom of funnel, right? Kind of cart abandonment. We know that you came, time is running out, come back and finish your registration. This is a little bit more of a top of funnel ad, but this would be a great example of that bottom of funnel retargeting ad that you send to somebody who's engaged, but they haven't made that leap. And they sold $247,000 in conference registrations, so a successful annual meeting for them. And then these are examples of ads from Japan America Society of Washington, D.C. They have a cherry blossom festival every spring in D.C., and it's a super popular, successful event every year. But they do run ads and do a lot of digital advertising to really get in front of as many people as possible. And so they actually were able to bring in $14,000 in ticket sales. This was their 2023 event, but I know they've had great success with the last 2 years as well. And they simply retargeted people who came to that Sakura Matsuri page, scrolled around on it, but then left without buying a ticket. And they reminded them, hey, don't miss out, buy your tickets, show up to this event. And the right message at the right time is kind of what it comes down to. This is what we're doing with all of these different campaign types, right? We're showing up in front of the right people based on what they're doing with messaging that is related to what they're doing. And you want to make sure that that messaging actually sounds good and is going to resonate with young people, right? So, awareness, you want to lead with impact. You want to try to hook people as quickly as possible. So, what happens for the person if they engage with you? What happens in the real world for them or for someone else, like we said earlier? Building trust so that this is bringing in real people, real stories, kind of showing the real impact. And so for an association event, this could be showing images of the event, showing people networking, right? Having a good time at your conference. For a nonprofit, this could be actually showing images of people, at a food pantry benefiting from the services. If there's sensitivity issues around showing photography of that, you can either use stock imagery if you find something that feels convincing, or you could show images of volunteers, right, in a food pantry. And so there's lots of things you can do to kind of work around that if you have limitations in terms of what you can show. And then conversions. So it should be one ask, one click, keep it simple, and make sure you make it easy for people to convert. So it's not just about one perfect ad with one perfect message. One ad on its own isn't going to do anything. You have to be showing up with multiple ads as people are having their unique online journeys, right? And you want to kind of be there in the background, making sure that they're not forgetting about you. So that consistent presence online in the right places with the right message is what's going to really drive conversions for you. All right, so let's get a little bit more into the specific organization types that are on here today. So I know we have a good mix today. So I want to kind of talk through a little bit of the nuance of each industry here. So when we're talking about associations and professional societies, we're looking at membership, event attendance, and sponsorships, right? And so when it comes to younger people, this is sort of what you're asking and what gets in the way. So you're asking for annual or monthly membership dues, events and conference registration, volunteer leadership roles, maybe, and then industry advocacy participation. So, in a lot of cases, you might only be trying to get somebody to become a member, and then maybe next year they'll attend your conference. Maybe you invite non-members to conferences or events, and that's how you kind of bring them into the fold, and then they become members. So, whatever you're asking for, there are going to be barriers when it comes to getting younger people to sort of believe that this is worth their while. So some of those barriers are unclear ROI for that person, right? What do I actually get for my dues? And we'll get into a second into why this is a thing because there's so much free information online. Um, Nobody's making them join. So I think there are probably some examples of industries or fields that still ask people to join an association. But for the most part, that is a bit of an outdated concept. I think a lot of the time, like in the past, people had to join associations in order to get networking opportunities, job opportunities, information in order to advance in their own careers. They had to join them, and it was sort of an obligation from the employer. And that's no longer the case for a lot of fields. And then the organization can kind of feel old sometimes because of this, right? Because it used to be that a lot of people had to join in order to be successful in their fields or even to exist in their fields. A lot of your members might skew, a little older. And so younger professionals kind of tend to assume that that's not for them. But you still want to get them to join your association, right? And so here are a few different ways that you can kind of combat this idea that they can get everything online for free. So, if they're thinking I can find everything on YouTube or on Reddit or whatever, on communities online, you could say, you can learn anything online, but you can't get hired by someone that you've never met. So this sort of in-person aspect of coming to conferences, mentorship programs that you might offer, really leaning into that, and the job market is really tough right now. And young people, I think, feel discouraged and scared for the future. And so if you can tell them that you can offer them opportunities that they maybe hadn't even thought of when it comes to specific jobs or roles, you can introduce them to people, you can offer mentorship, you can offer that in-person community building through events. That offers that just sense of comfort and support and direction and kind of this feeling of like, okay, there's hope, there's opportunity in the future. And so really, really tapping into that when you're speaking to younger people is key. And so LinkedIn is obviously a huge place where people do networking, and that can give access. There's no reason not to use that if it works, but associations can offer more credibility and those sort of warmer introductions than LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn often is a lot of sort of cold outreach to people that don't know you and might not ever respond, right? Because they don't have any obligation to respond. And so association membership can kind of put you in front of real people who have some kind of feeling of obligation to engage with you because they're also members and they're also your peers. And then joining free Slack communities and things like this, you're putting people in the room with the people who are writing the standards, shaping policy, doing the hiring. So these really key people in the field that, younger people would benefit from being around. And then applying the playbook that we talked about earlier to associations. So, some different things that you could think about with geofencing are conferences. So, whether it's a competing industry event or your own conference, right? College campuses, employer offices. So, if you sort of know, I'm trying to reach people in this specific field, and I know that people in my field work in these areas or these buildings, and this could be anywhere in the country, anywhere in your state. So depending on who you're trying to reach, you can draw those perimeters around locations and serve ads to people who are spending time in those spots. And an employer office is a great example of like you could do the real time or the historical geofencing because people are going to be on their phones, between tasks and things like that, and they will continue to see your ads when they go home from work because they were at that workplace. Search retargeting. So for career and certification queries, these can be great sort of a starting point for what keywords am I going to be targeting for. So people looking for professional certifications in your field, people looking for networking events, right? Career development resources, things like that. You can serve them ads because they search for these things. Lowering the barrier to entry. So you can offer specific things that make it a little bit more of an easy entry for younger people who maybe don't have the same amount of money to spend, but are interested in getting the benefits from your association. So you could offer young professional rates, free webinar access to kind of bring them in and show them what you have to offer, and then try to get them to become a member or pay for an in-person event and maybe even offering a free event before you ask for dues. So there's a lot you can do. I'm sure a lot of you are already kind of doing these things and getting creative with how you make your offer. But when it comes to younger people, cheaper is better, free is better, and sort of trying to pull people in slowly by giving them some value before you ask them to pull their wallet out because there is so much free information that, we're used to getting everything for free. And so people will pay for things, but you have to kind of show them what you have to offer before you ask them to pay because they'll think they can find it elsewhere. And then building an engagement ladder. So you might not get somebody to become a member right away, but somebody might start following you on social media, right? They might subscribe to your email newsletter to learn more. They might attend an event, right? Especially if you offer it at a discount or for free. And then they're much more likely to become a member and even an advocate or leader in your space. So meet them where they are, offer them something that is reasonable for them to engage with, and be open to the idea that they won't become a member right away or drop a whole lot of money right away, but you know that you have something valuable for them. So kind of pull them in by offering things that make sense and let them have their own journey with you, but staying in front of them and not sort of falling off the radar is going to be key to building that long-term relationship. All right, so for nonprofits and 501(c)(3)s, you're going to be talking about donation, volunteers, and advocacy, right? So these are sort of some of the main goals that you're trying to accomplish. And when it comes to younger people, there's a lot of barriers to accomplishing these things. So you're asking for donations, whether that's one time or recurring monthly donations. You're asking for people to come and volunteer their time and energy. Social sharing and advocacy is huge, again, because you want to be sort of spreading the word through that peer-based sort of testimonial based marketing, right? Peer to peer. And so this is really important for staying relevant for younger people, but you have to find ways to actually get people to want to click and share. And then you're also asking for people to give you their email so that you can stay in touch with newsletters or upcoming events. And so some of the barriers here are that there's lower trust in charities, and this just has to do with that general lower trust in institutions and organizations, right? Like, what is the proof that you're actually doing what you're saying you're doing? How can I know that this is going to a good cause and that it's worth my money? And so finding ways to prove that your organization is actually doing what you say you're doing. There's less money to go around. So this is kind of across the board. This is going to be a limitation. And so smaller recurring asks can convert better with younger audiences than those big time or big one-time appeals, right? So asking somebody to give $50 might not go over well, but asking somebody to give $5 a month might actually be more effective. And recurring donors actually give more over time than one-time donors. And so that's kind of a win-win. And then there is cause fatigue. I think we live in a world where there's so much going on. There's so many organizations that you can give to. There's so much just turmoil and social unrest. And so it can get exhausting to be hearing about all of the things that you should be giving to, right? And especially if you don't feel like you have the money to give, it can be sort of like almost like tugging on like guilt, sort of feelings. And so you want to make sure that you are standing out with specificity about why somebody should engage with your cause and why it's not just like all the others. And so just being specific about what someone can do or the impact they can have by giving even just a small amount is going to be helpful. So cause fatigue is real, but obviously this is just, it is what it is. So you have to kind of push through and find ways to build trust, be specific, and really show the impact that someone can have. So applying the playbook that we've been talking about to nonprofits, you can geofence events. So this might be like, music events or local events, similar to what Palmetto Community Care did. They geofenced a venue with a music festival, right? They geofenced other events at breweries and things like that with relevant people that might want to come to their event. You can geofence campuses as well. So if you're looking for young advocates or volunteers, right? A lot of the time, college students and even high school students need to volunteer. And so they're looking for causes that they might want to help out with. And so campuses can be a great place to geofence. Faith communities. So this is a really popular one for getting donations. A lot of people who go to churches and places of worship are going to be more engaged in sort of charitable giving as a community. And so this is one that we see a lot for nonprofits and 501(c)(3)s is geofencing churches and places of worship. And then wealthy zip codes, like I said earlier. So this might be, a zip code in your area. It might be a whole side of town. It might be specific neighborhoods. So you can kind of decide what that looks like. But getting in front of people who actually have that disposable income and might be on the older side, right? And maybe they have more money to give. Maybe they have more time to spare and they could volunteer. Those are areas where you want to be serving ads. All right, let me just check the questions real quick. Um, Okay. How do you get people to give you their email? We get a lot of resistance. Yeah, I mean, this is tough. I feel like this just comes down to what you're offering them. So obviously, if somebody donates or registers for an event or something like that, when they fill out the form, you'll get their email. So you probably do have a good sort of starting point in your CRM or your AMS in terms of email lists of people who have engaged with you in some way in the past. And you probably, if you have a newsletter or something like that, you have an email list of subscribers. But this is definitely tough because I think people are wary of giving their email addresses. So this just comes back to building trust, building relationships, showing up with an organic and paid presence on places like social media, Meta, Facebook, and getting people to engage and come to your website. That's sort of ultimately where you want to bring people. And then you just have to figure out ways to get them to want to engage on your website. So whether that's giving a $5 donation and giving you their email in the process, or if it's, a smaller ask, like, sign up for a monthly newsletter where we're going to be talking about things that we have going on in the community. So basically, anything that you have to offer that somebody might be willing to engage in that doesn't necessarily involve paying for something, those are ways that you can get people to give you their email. But I know that it's tough, so it really is kind of about building trust and giving them a reason to give you their email. And then once you have that, you can do a lot more, right? You can not only email them, but there's even ad campaign types where you can use email addresses as identifiers for serving ads. So if you have an email list of event attendees, you can email them about this year's upcoming event and you can serve them ads based on that email list saying, hey, we emailed you, but also, come to our website, check it out in case you didn't see our email. Um, And then, oh yeah, that's but Katie, I know that that's such a real thing. I feel like I'm always so aware of that problem and I'm really careful to write my email clearly, but that is definitely a thing. If anyone in the audience has any tips for that, I do not know. I mean, maybe like have something at the top is like please write clearly or remind people, okay, use iPads for signups. Perfect. That's a great one. QR codes versus writing down emails. Yep. Cool. Yeah, if that's accessible to you, Katie, instead of the written one, try that out because that's great. And then yeah, okay, cool. Uh so, okay, so we talked about geofencing for nonprofits. All right, so search, if you were running these search keyword campaigns, you might target phrases like how to help specific cause, right? So if it's a cause that aligns with yours, you'd want to show up with ads about your organization. For those people, volunteer opportunities near me, where to donate, especially coming up on end of year, people might be looking for like canned food drives, things like that. And so just thinking about what people are going to be searching for and serving them ads for your organization because they are clearly interested and a warmer audience than somebody who's never heard of you and never searched for something relevant. Video content can be great for nonprofits. So, beneficiary stories, behind the scenes, showing volunteer moments, these things can be really helpful for kind of really building the trust of what's going on behind the scenes of your organization and actually showing it. So people will say, okay, well, like it looks like this organization is really doing stuff. There's real people here benefiting and working on the cause. And so that can help really build that trust factor asking for small recurring donations. So, sort of equating a smaller recurring amount to a specific impact can be helpful, and actually telling them that a recurring donation can be more helpful than a one-time big donation. Not only makes it, feel more doable for them, but also kind of makes them feel better, like they're giving more because they're giving less, but more often. So get creative with the framing of your ask and your offer to make it feel like to make people feel good about engaging with you. And then gift match campaigns, do these whenever you can, right? So 84% of donors are more likely to give when a match exists. So finding ways to get match campaigns, whether that's like tapping into like local, corporate sponsors or major donors who've given huge chunks of money in the past, you could actually try to have a relationship with those major donors where that you turn that into a gift match campaign. And that can have a really cool sort of like self-reinforcing effect of like people give more when there's a gift match. And then sometimes I've heard of instances where the major donor who's matching will actually give more because they're excited about how much is coming in from individual donors. And so that can add up really fast. And then messaging, you want to make sure that your messaging actually is going to resonate with and move younger donors. And so, just some examples of shifting from more organization-centered messaging to impact-centered language that's going to really kind of make people trust you. So, instead of support our mission, for a donation ask, you might say something like $5 gives a child a bed for a week, give tonight. An idea of an email subject line. So, instead of kind of just naming what the campaign is, you might do sort of like a clickbait kind of thing. Someone in your city needed help last night. Here's what happened. They click through and you tell a story about an individual person, right? Instead of just saying people in the community are hungry, they need you, you actually kind of really drill down on a real person and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a real person that has gone through specific things. You can kind of pull from the experiences of beneficiaries and craft a narrative that is, feels accurate to your cause, but isn't disclosing any information that you shouldn't be disclosing about beneficiaries. So you can get creative with that. For social ads, so instead of just donate this season, you might just lead with some numbers and some impact statements, right? And then for volunteers, just kind of make it feel really simple and easy. Ask them to bring a friend. That can make it feel fun right off the bat. And then for arts and culture organizations, so you're asking for them to purchase a ticket or join a program, get a membership to your venue, to your museum, to donate, to actually support your programming and to, share and spread the word. And so some of the barriers here are that they might not know that you exist yet, right? So awareness is everything, just actually knowing that you exist in their community. Competition for Saturday night, right? You're competing with streaming services, staying at home on the couch, going out for, dinner to a restaurant, going to the movie theater. So you're competing with every other possible plan that somebody could have on a Friday or Saturday. And then some people, younger people, might say, like, that's not for me, right? Some stuff is maybe considered to be sort of out of budget or like for other people. And so you want to make sure that you're actively signaling to people that you offer things that are interesting for them, regardless of age, right? We have something for everybody. And then the more you learn about the people who are attending your shows, the more targeted you can get. If you have a list of people who have attended a specific type of show in the past, then you can promote similar shows to them in the future, right? You're not just promoting everything to everybody. So that's where segmenting your audience and really getting that data and tracking that data over time lets you get even more targeted with the people that you're reaching. And then applying the playbook here with arts and culture orgs, you can geofence schools, parks, rival venues. So if you're an orchestra and there's other orchestras locally, you could geofence those and say, hey, we've got shows too, come see ours. Coffee shops, family destinations, so anywhere people are spending time, family-friendly areas. So you might want to be pulling in those like millennial parents with younger kids. You might be pulling in just like young people who are spending time out and about in the community and might actually be interested in the arts and they don't know about you yet. Lead with the experience. So an unforgettable Saturday with your kid instead of support our museum. And then as much as you can tap into micro influencers, local, influencers, and shareable moments, and then user generated content is great too. So if you do have people in the community who have good followings, try to get them to actually share content that they've made at your venue or something like that with their audiences, right? Because that's going to go a longer way than your own ads. And then reframe membership as a season pass. This language kind of feels a little bit more accessible to Gen Z and millennials. And then lean into Instagram and TikTok, lead with authenticity. So, again, that behind the scenes stuff, really showing the work that's happening. Short form video works best with younger people. So, keeping it under 60 seconds. Always use captions because a lot of the time people will keep things on mute. And then jump straight in, no long intros, just get straight to the value. Micro influencer partnerships, wherever you can find those, and then user generated content can go a long way. So creating sort of photo worthy moments for your volunteers where they're going to actually want to take a picture of them and their friends volunteering at your actually attending your event, right? So if you have a museum and you have a beautiful like exhibit, right? That's like a seasonal exhibit that create situations where people are going to want to take photos and organically share with their friends and family. So guests can actually become your biggest advocates and evangelists. So all in all, this is the same playbook for every different organization. You're going to have different goals, different barriers to entry when it comes to getting younger people to engage. But whatever your goals are, you want to make sure that you are growing awareness, getting in front of the right people in the right places, right? Serving that right message over time in the right places, building trust, and ultimately getting people to convert because you've built that relationship and let them kind of join in at their own pace. So that is it. Let me really quick before I dive into the other questions that are here, I'm going to launch another quick poll. Um, just to see who would like to get a more detailed walkthrough of Feathr. So go ahead and put a yes if you'd like to see how Feathr can help you do a lot of what we talked about today. So whether that's growing awareness, getting people to complete their registrations, running retargeting campaigns, right? So if you have a website, if you have an event page, you have a donation page, you want to be tracking everything that's happening on that page and serving ads to people based on what they did. So there's a lot that you can do simply because you have a website. You just install a tracking pixel, um, whip up some ads and serve them. You can do a lot of this with a relatively low budget, just a few $100s. You can really get in front of a lot of people and drive conversions. So retargeting is always the thing that I say is like the number one thing you should start with if you're not already doing it. So make sure everything's mobile friendly and start with retargeting and then get into awareness campaigns because it's really similar once you kind of get a hang of retargeting and developing ads for that. I think it's easier to get into like building this awareness, running geofencing campaigns, right? Understanding how to segment your audience and kind of show up in the right places. So but there's a lot that you can do if you're not already running these campaigns. So let me go through the questions real quick. Um, okay. Uh, I'm curious how geofencing compares to letting Meta find your ideal audience. I used to add interest keyword targeting on Meta and stopped because it felt like an outdated practice. So geofencing, I know that with Meta, you can do things like lookalike audiences, so it can kind of pull audiences that look similar to your existing audience. Uh, and you can also do just general like affinity targeting on Meta. So you can kind of get in front of specific audiences that you feel align with you. So you could get, pretty detailed, like I want to reach people within this age group, this income bracket, people in this specific field. So there is a lot you can do natively on Meta. Geofencing really is kind of different. And obviously, you have geofilters in Meta, right? So whenever you're running a campaign natively, you are setting geofilters so that you're not spending budget outside of where you want to be spending budget. With geofencing, you're really thinking about specific places out in the real world. And so I would say it's different than what you're talking about having done on Meta. You can do them in combination too. It sounds like you're not really doing the Meta ideal audience anymore, which is fine. You can also run campaigns similar to that in Feathr. We have affinity targeting, we have lookalike audience targeting. And so sometimes it's nice to kind of just do everything in one place. Obviously, you can see all the campaigns and results in the same dashboard. But geofencing is really just thinking about where are my people spending time in the real world? I want to serve them ads because they're spending time in those places. So I would say it's different, but I hopefully that kind of answers your question in terms of the difference. But I think both things are, running paid ads on social in whatever way works for you is important, and you can run that in parallel with geofencing campaigns. So, and you can also run your meta campaigns directly in Feathr as well if you don't want to do them natively and kind of want to have everything in one place. So that's another perk of using Feathr. We offer a lot of different campaign types, and you can see everything in the dashboard when you pull a report. Everything's kind of easy to compare, just sort of seeing what's working and what's not. You're not comparing apples to oranges in terms of reporting types. Um, okay, I think I covered most of the questions. Like I said, I'm going to be sending out the recording and the deck tomorrow, so feel free to answer my email or respond to my email with any other questions that you might have and any feedback. Actually, on that note, okay, thanks for this one. I am going to launch one more quick poll as I sign us off. I want to just get a little bit of feedback on today's webinar. So if you have a couple minutes, it shouldn't take more than 1 or 2 minutes. And this will stay with you after I end the webinar. So, and I'll include this in the email follow-up tomorrow as well in case you don't have time now, but I'd just love to get a little bit of feedback on how this was for you today. And if there's any other topics that would be helpful for me to cover in the future. So thank you all so much for joining, and I will hopefully see you on a future webinar. Bye.